Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It's Monday evening, a little after 6 p.m., and we'll get started with our session. I hope everyone had a good start of the week, a good day today, and let's open up and see if we have any questions. I know I was able to listen to probably first 20 minutes or so of the session yesterday. I was able to hear it, listen to a little bit this afternoon. So, do you want to start there? You want any questions about what you discussed on yesterday, or any of the other anything else part of the discussion yesterday that you want to get into, or anything for that matter? Questions, comments.
Kind of recap after, if you don't have any questions, Ron, as to what was discussed yesterday.
Well, I wasn't there. I heard, like I said, the first probably 20 minutes or so. I know from what I heard, someone asked Pastor, I think Lamont asked a question on last week about the politics and what's going on in Washington, and Pastor got into that yesterday, talking about greed and them posturing for power, and if he will, he can recap that portion of it, because he gave a lot more detail than what I just said, and the importance of that, what's going on there, and even the House and Congress, and not being much difference between the Republicans and Democrats, and so those sort of things we have kind of kept an eye on all along. So, Pastor, is there any more insights you wish to show us with that?
Really, there isn't any more insight into that beyond what I said, unless there are questions. However, in addition to that, we also talked about the reality of how the people of antiquity left a story for us to follow, so that we could follow the breadcrumbs of the stories back to our beginning, knowing that all of us are spirit, thus helping us to function in this earth realm in a spiritual way. We talked about that in regards to the journey that Moses and others took out of Egypt, understanding that is an allegory as opposed to living people, inclusive of the New Testament as well. And we also talked about life and death. And Nick presented quite a bit in terms of the attempts to understand what life and death is. So with that, I would ask if there are indeed any questions about that, or is there any part of it that needs clarity?
Well, I certainly want to hear that. That's the sort of thing is fascinating to me, and I wanted to. I haven't gotten far enough into the video to hear his details on heaven and hell. So yeah, if you have anything you want to add to that, but if not, I'll listen to the tape on it, and then
They'll be internal, just like everything else is.
Yeah. Okay.
And the whole concept of living in hell speaks more to the decisions we make from within, and the pathway that we follow in this earth based upon those decisions. And when we talk about heaven, which is enlightenment, that is real. and you don't have to exit the body in order to experience heaven. So that's pretty much the gist of it, I think. However, I know that there are others on who were partakers of the discussion yesterday. So if you guys have anything that you would like to impart to us in reference to yesterday, would you please do so now? Thank you.
I do have one question myself. When you say decisions that you make from within, we are talking about uh, your spirituality, I would suppose, and those type, not professional or type of decisions that may lead you into a box or corner or something, but the decisions you make as to who you are in relationship with the creator, those type of decisions.
Those type of decisions, yes. For example, if you make a decision that you're going to follow the pathway that religion has offered us, and you follow that pathway, soon you will begin to find out that you are continuously hearing the same things over and over again, and you're seeing the same people come down to the altar calls with the same issues Sunday after Sunday and year after year. Also, you will find that based upon which denomination you're in, that your pursuits in this natural world are based upon what you receive from your religious settings, also based upon what you receive from your home and community environments. And those decisions that you make in regards to those things are a determining factor as to whether or not you are experiencing hell or heaven or enlightenment. And what we have discovered is that hell is not necessarily something that is brutal towards you physically. Hell is also a something that is brutal towards you in a spiritual way. It damages your affinity for spiritual insight. And the reason it does is because this type of hell keeps you following after a carrot on a stick, and you never get the carrot, and you never get anything meaningful out of it. You struggle with it, and the struggle with it means that you end up lying to yourself, and you end up hiding things from everyone else and attempting to hide it from yourself because of the list of do's and don'ts. However, the ones who imparted in us these religious concepts that leads us along this way were very genuine in their teachings. Not only were they genuine, they were adamant about it. There is a saying that no matter what religion you give to an African, they are going to purify it, and they are going to hold on to it stronger than the ones who gave it to them. And in our case, that's exactly what was happening. And when they asked questions, they were told that they were not supposed to understand the whole of the Bible, and so they taught us the same thing. However, our pursuit to understand would not allow us to be comfortable with that or to embrace that. So our continued questioning brought us to a place where we were searching for God. We want to understand God better. And in our search to understand God, we found ourselves. And in finding ourselves, meaning that we found our image and likeness of Elohim, we also found that we are spiritual in nature. Our natural essence is to be spiritual. And the battle is refraining from doing that. The battle is trying to hold on to something that's non-existent. As in, let's say, for example, a child asks you, hands you a piece of ice and asks you, what is this? And you say ice. And the kid asks you, what is ice? And you say, actually, water. Ice doesn't exist, water does. And the kid breaks the ice and finds out that it melts into water, existence of ice. And that's kind of what we found out with religion. The more we delved into trying to understand it and find God in it, the more we realize that God does not exist in religion. God exists in us because we are God and God is us. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does.
And I want to ask those who were on yesterday, is that a fair explanation of pretty much of what we talked about in regards to heaven and hell?
Yes, sir. It is, Pastor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to add to that? Or make a comment on it?
You may have already said this. You may have already said this. I got on a little late. But we talked about the fact that we are responsible for creating our own heavenly and hellish experiences by our thoughts and how we respond to those. And I know you said there's those things which are spiritual versus those things which are religious. And I think that's the key thing that I got out of it, that as Elohim, we have that responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is absolutely true. I hope that I covered the essence of what was said yesterday in regards to that. And when we talked about life and death, we talked about it. Of course, death does not exist in the sense that we think it does. Death, as we call it, is the cessation of bio-life in this earth. When bio-life does not end either, it just takes a different form, because the elements of the body are returned to its source, which is the earth, and there is the energy of the elements in the body remains in the earth, but the energy that propels the body returns to its source, and we call that death. And when it talks about the concept of death and hell being tossed into or cast into the lake of fire, that has nothing to do with hell as we have been taught. Because if hell is cast into the lake of fire and hell is fire, then that doesn't make sense at all. If you think about the people you love deeply, whether it be your child, whether it be your mom, your dad, or one of your sisters, brothers, other relatives, friends, if they were to do something wrong according to what you've told them not to do, would you put them in eternal punishment, burning forever, without any recourse for repentance or forgiveness, when you have taught them that forgiving is the ultimate that you can do for each other? So if that's true, if we are incapable of that, why would the one who created everything that is be so ruthless as to cast someone into fire, everlasting fire? The whole concept of hell and the whole literal translations of the scriptures and putting bodily human characteristics to the names that we were given started with 813 bishops at the Nicene Conference. Prior to that, there was no such thing or concept as heaven and hell as we have been taught. Neither was there any concept of all of these characters in the Bible being actual people. It was all allegories, and they were stories that were given to us for the benefit of maintaining the access to spirituality, because our Creator knew the journey that we were going to have to travel, and the truth of the scriptures were hidden in plain sight, but they were bastardized by those at the Nicene Conference. and we have been living under that bastardization ever since that period of time. And now here we are recognizing what's real about the writings of the book, and we're more able to bring balance to this earth consciousness based upon the understandings that are being revealed to us. And the revelation of them are not necessarily coming without us having access to others who've seen bits and pieces of it. Excuse me. When we talk about doing research and reading books, etc., reading history, understanding the hieroglyphics as best as we can, and following the journey of those who were able to see spiritually with their eyes and eye. And what we see is that, excuse me, is that we are a generation above generations that has come before us, in that we are at a place of reckoning, a place of exposure, to the extent that we have a golden opportunity to bring Earth to the place where it was intended to be from the beginning. And that means that we have the opportunity to do as our Creator did, create in our image and likeness, which is love and kindness, mercy, etc. Questions or comments, or am I clear? Am I on target rather with the things that we talked about yesterday? Even though explaining them hopefully in different words, or using different words, I should say. Any questions or comments?
Well, yeah, I guess I could ask you a question and take it in a kind of different direction, because I wanted to talk about death. I agree with you, and I haven't listened to the tape yet of this, as I've said, but I've always thought we've misunderstood the concept of death and seeing it as something so final. Everything you mentioned and we've known up until now, we've seen in the book has been erroneously taught to us, and we are recovering that now. So is that concept of death, and looking at reincarnation, that has always sort of fascinated me. And you guys talked about yesterday when Jesus said, "Who do men say that I am?" I've often wondered about that, because we talk about the ancestors, and I think we are one and the same. But how does that? Who decides how that works? Is it the pursuit of truth, or the understanding that initiates that, or is it
initiate reincarnation?
Yeah, because I don't. God is everything we've seen that we thought was bad in the scriptures is not bad. In fact, it all points to life. So when we look at the earth and you see all the destruction, and you see the people being lynched, and I'm talking about the African now, all the brutality, all of that can't be. There's a deeper side to it, and even to the painfulness of it. I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say. I just wonder, do you have a firmer grasp or understanding of reincarnation? Because my concept is people are born to die, meaning that could George Floyd also be the same spirit of Nat Turner or someone else who died? That it is the death is meant to ignite something in the earth rather than look at it from a brutal perspective.
You have about 20 questions wrapped up in there.
I know, because I'm confused. But it just kind of fascinates me, and I was just got excited when I heard y'all talking about it.
The idea of reincarnation is not what we have been told it is. You cannot separate the visitation and presence of ancestors without embracing reincarnation. And what I mean by that is this. Reincarnation is the energy of those who come before us, making itself a part of us at birth and during our lifetime on this earth. What am I saying? I am saying that reincarnation is not the totality of who I am right now. If I am the reincarnation of someone else, then that means not only do I have the energy that came from my daddy and his lineage, or my mama and her lineage, but the energy that's necessary for me to travel this earth journey is within me. When you ask the question of others, like George Floyd being Nat Turner, it could very well be, but it could not be as well. It could have been Emmett Till, who was beaten to death also. But the energy is in the earth for us to embrace. Now, I do not believe for a second that all the energy that we are to embrace is in us at birth. I believe at birth we have opportunity to embrace energy as we are more enlightened about the journey that we travel, or based upon the decisions that we make as we travel this journey. A large amount of the energy that we embrace without even knowing it is the energy that's present in our environment as we grow up. Our exposure to different elements as we travel this journey gives us opportunity to embrace certain energy. There are those who travel this journey, and the energy that's presented to them is opportunity to get extremely wealthy at the expense of others, and now they have a choice to embrace it or not. If they embrace it, then they travel that journey. If they don't embrace it, then they embrace the energy that speaks to them about being beneficial to mankind, and that could also lead to wealth. So the energy we embrace is in itself a incarnate energy that's available to us as we travel the journey. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Now, as to the idea of something being deeper, there has to be something deeper about the brutality that we've had to endure. It is something deeper about that, and the depth of that we have already seen. And what I mean is the depth of the brutality we've endured. The depth of it is that we were brought into this environment called America for the express purpose of bringing balance to humanity, and that if the first born human in this earth came from the womb of the African, then that seems to me that the African would be the one who has experienced balance, or at least a very opportunity for it. And the kilter of the world was not thrown off balance until the encounter with Europeans. That's when it was really thrown off balance. And in order to bring it back to balance, then there has to be a spiritual reconciliation. And that spiritual reconciliation means that those who are able to see the truth or see the enlightenment, to live, embrace the enlightenment of the book and understand what's being said in the book, are responsible for creating in its image. And that image is bringing these minds and these mindsets and these cultural attitudes of brutality and being barbaric in nature, we are responsible for bringing that to a place of balance. In other words, healing the souls of those who carry those kinds of attitudes. And that's the underlying thing that we are talking about when we talk about bringing balance. The difference is that it is prettier to talk about bringing balance and than it is to talk about what is out of balance and the source of what is out of balance and what point in history did this take place and the things that took place to bring things to this place of imbalance. So when we talk about balance, we're incorporating all of those things. So when you say, is there something deeper than just the humility that we have been forced to suffer or to experience? Yes, there is something much deeper. Does that help you or answer your question? And please, comments from anyone, please.
It does.
Anyone else? Any input or questions from anyone else? I made a statement, and no one questioned it, and I think I need to amplify it. The statement I made was that the book is actually an allegory, the entire book, whether it be Old or New Testament. And I know that it's very difficult for us to wrap our minds around. However, suppose for a moment that that everything in there is a message that's hidden, and the reason the characters are used, or the names of people are used in the story, is to make it easier to pass on from generation to generation, but also to make it more difficult for those who would bastardize it to understand it in its true nature. When the flaming sword was placed at the entrance to the garden, that is no different than saying that the truth is here, and you are going to have to go through an initiation period in order for you to be purged and see this truth. That means that you're able to read the words, but just because you can read the words and call the names of the people or in the story, it does not mean that you understand the story. You can read about Moses leading the people into the wilderness and being there in the wilderness, giving them the law from Mount Sinai, and then talking to them about going into the promised land. All of that sounds sweet, yet there's no physical evidence that ever took place. Now, if you look at it esoterically, if you look at it spiritually, what you see is that Moses is every one of us, and the wilderness is an experience that all of us have, and the choice to enter the promised land is the decision that we have to make. Does that make sense to you? And I'm not just
Yes.
asking Ron. I'm asking all of you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions about this?
So, say to this, Ramel, everyone, good evening. Each of the characters in the book are a concept. And as we grow in understanding, each of those concepts begin to manifest in each of us. Do I have that correct? Am I going in the right direction with that?
A slight correction.
Okay.
They don't manifest in us. They're already there. We make a choice to seek it, to seek the truth. And when we seek the truth, our eye is opened and our eye begins to see it and understand the mystery involved in it. Does that make sense, Ramil?
It does, and the mystery unfolds in various ways for each individual, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
One of the things that we learn, at least I'm sure most of us anyway, learn growing up, is that the words that come out of your mouth and the actions that you that you show towards people shows what's inside of you. The way you treat people, the things you say, is actually a what is it? What word am I looking for? An expression of what's in you, an expression of what you recognize that's in you. If you recognize pain in you, then you're going to hurt other people, even if your pain recognition is subconscious. If you recognize racism in you, whether it be conscious or subconscious, that's how you're going to relate to other people. If it's hatred, that's how you're going to relate to other people. However, once you make a decision that you are going to travel this journey of righteousness, you are searching for the enlightenment that the Creator intended for us to be in this earth. When we make that decision, then what we begin to see is, in order for us to enlighten humanity, we must first enlighten ourselves, meaning that we have to be cognizant of what we say to people, what we think about them, and how we treat them. If that does not happen, then you're wasting your time. If you're not willing to make those that journey of introspection, you are wasting your time. If you are not on a continuous journey of introspection, then that's a problem. If you are planning on bringing balance to humanity, without introspection, you cannot bring balance to yourself. No one on this phone is so pure in nature and righteous until they don't need to do some introspection and recognize the hard things. If there is something that someone says that makes you uncomfortable, then that's something you need to deal with. If there's something that hurts you, ask yourself, why does it hurt you? If it's truth, if it can be shown based upon the scriptures or based upon history as well, then you need to ask yourself, why is it that you're so uncomfortable with it or upset about it? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Anyone else?
This is Charles.
Yes, sir.
What was God's reason for us during the time we was in the garden before we took up on the sin of good and evil?
First of all, we're still in the garden. And the intent for us to make a righteous decision. And this whole idea of the garden of good and evil is who you are, is not what you're searching for. There is no geographical location of the garden. I'm sorry, the tree of good and evil, rather. There is no geographical location for a garden, nor is there a geographical location for a tree of knowledge of good and evil or a tree of life. You are it. the decisions that you make, that those decisions are made based upon the tree of functionality or dysfunctionality. And if at some point we're going to look at the physiology of spirituality, because everything that is spiritual is also, we can also show it in physiology. And I will give you an example, and at some point we will delve much deeper into it. In the brain, there is a thalamus. In the thalamus, the front of the thalamus, there is the pineal gland. The back of the thalamus is the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland secretes a white substance, and the pineal gland secretes a golden substance or yellow substance, and those two substances are indicative of the land of milk and honey. And if we trace it to where it ends, we'll find that it ends in the solar plex. And though that place of the solar plex is where decisions are made about whether or not we are going to live under the law or above the law. And that in itself is a lesson upon within itself. So when we talk about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we're not talking about something that's external of us. Even if you look at, more simply, maybe, is when we look at the tree. I remember at Greater New Faith, during one of the anniversaries, we had discussed the idea that the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the roots of it were in heaven, and the branches were towards earth. Well, during the time of the anniversary, the people who gave me an anniversary drew a tree, and it was upside down. And recently, I understand clearly what that means now. The root ball of the tree of knowledge of good and evil and of life that's inside of us is the brain, the nerves in the brain. That's the root ball. Because if you look at that, from that root ball in the brain, that barrier, that ball of nerves, from it are the branches of the other nerves that flows throughout the body, and that makes that communicates rather from the roots to the rest of the body and back to the roots again. So when I talk about that being more physiological and spiritual than it is geographical, that's what I'm talking about. And I hope it makes sense. If it's not clear, then please ask the questions, because at some point this is going to end up being a foundation for discussion. Is that clear, Charles?
A little, because when you said that, it made me look back at myself saying, God created all that in me, the good and the evil that he created, and I know it's in me.
Yes.
All right.
And the light and darkness. I created the light, I made the darkness. Remember that scripture, Isaiah? What is that saying about physiologically speaking? We make those decisions, whether or not that darkness is going to be confusion, or remain confusion rather, or whether that darkness is going to be a source of wisdom that we seek to understand. And if we allow it to remain confusion and not seek to understand the wisdom of it, then we begin to do things that is adversarial to our presence in this earth and adversarial to the one who created us. And when things are adversarial to the one who created us, they are also adversarial to our bodies, physiologically adversarial. And that is one of the reasons when we are upset, we can feel it in our solar plex. When we are hurt, we can feel it there. I mean, emotionally hurt, that's where we feel it. That's where we experience it. So all of these things are physiological in nature / spiritual. You cannot separate the physiology of it from the spiritual, they are inextricably tied together. And if we look at the biology of the physiology of it, and we see how the fluids from the pituitary gland and the pineal gland travel down the body into the solar plex, we will see how it crisscrosses and emerges into one when it reaches that point in the solar plex. So everything about us is spiritual and physiological, even to the point where I think I mentioned it yesterday or day before, where there's no doubt that we are one with the universe itself based upon the atoms, not the similarity, but the atoms that are exactly the same and in the same sequence that are within us as it is within the universe itself. Am I making sense to you guys? Please help me here. Clarity, questions, comments.
It's just like if you're liking that person and that person not telling you that she like you, if you're looking at each other's eyes, it seems like the eye draws the picture of I like you, you like me. You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. I do, Charles, because actually eye contact says a lot, and the idea of avoiding eye contact also says a lot. And you're absolutely right. You can look in someone's eyes, and your emotions can be communicated through your eyes, whether it is affection or anger. It still can be communicated through your eyes, or whether it's being pretentious, or it can be communicated through your eyes. So the point that I was attempting to make with the physiology of it, you just made it also. With these physical eyes, spiritual emotions can be communicated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? I need help here. I need questions. If you're not clear, you don't have a question, you don't know how to form the question, just say, I don't understand.
Pastor, this is Teresa. I have a question or comment. Can you assist me with, I know you said something a few minutes ago that if someone says something to you and it makes you uncomfortable or you feel some type of way, but then on yesterday, I know you also said that we meet people where they're at. So when we know in our spirit, in our heart, that what someone is saying, and they're saying it in front of a group of people, what are we supposed to do? Because I always revert back to what Kathy says. Sit with it, wait, don't respond, but then figure out how to deal with it. But it has to be dealt with. My question and comment. Thank you.
If you have opportunity to sit with it, that's what you do. If you don't have opportunity to sit with it, you're going to have to make a righteous decision on the spot. Just because you respond to something or to someone who has said something adversarial to you, it does not necessarily mean that you don't respond to it in a way to shut them down. Simply, righteousness doesn't mean that you're a footstool, that people can wipe their feet on you. It doesn't mean that at all. However, you have an obligation to monitor how you respond in terms of your tone and the words that you use. Now, when I said that when people say things to us, we need to question ourselves and see why it made us feel that way. Your answer will determine your response. Every adversarial thing that comes our way, whether it be speech or action, everything that's adversarial that comes our way is designed to strengthen us, is designed to show us where we need to deal with ourselves. It is not there to destroy you. If it's not there to destroy you, it's there to make you stronger. So all of the challenges that you face, the adversities that you endure, they are there to make you strong. That is the reason. One of the things that I always remembered that Rem Hawkins is constantly put in my head was, you must be able to persevere in the face of adversity. If you cannot persevere in the face of adversity, then you're going to have a problem navigating this earth, and you're definitely going to have a problem navigating this journey of spirituality for the benefit of humanity. Because you are going to meet adversity. Adversity is going to meet you. And the question is, how are you going to deal with it? Are you going to deal with it through perseverance, or are you going to deal with it through so much pain until you quit? Does that make sense? And does that help you, Teresa?
It does, because I've dealt with mine, but I'm also trying to help someone else as well. So therefore, the adversity, I mean, that stuff comes, but it does not come because I've dealt with mine, but because of who I am and my spiritual knowledge, I have to help someone else. So again, it is still mind-blowing, but trying to help someone else at the same time, I'm still dealing with it. So each and every day, I take one day at a time.
Right. Okay. That's all you can do, dear.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The other thing you said, Teresa, about responding to it, I think we've talked before about reacting versus responding. When you hear something that either you don't like or you're uncomfortable with, and you say something right away, 9 times out of 10 you're just reacting. Whereas if you sit with it, and you think about it in terms of who you are, and what kind of message you want to put out, then you are able to respond to it. So that sitting with it allows us to be able to respond in a way that's best for ourselves and for the person, as opposed to just reacting immediately. Anyway, so I just wanted to clarify reacting versus responding.
Correct. Again, that's why I indicated and said that I have to think about it, and which is what I've done. And therefore, when I respond, then they understand and they hear me, and they revolt back and just sit down, because they realize that, okay, you cannot talk to this person right here the way you've talked to other people, regardless of how long you've been in this position. I'm new, so therefore I'm another light. I'm more spiritual, and I'm bringing something else to the table. But this is not how an office or an environment should have to deal with something like this. So therefore, I know I'm here for a reason. And so with that being said, I know what it is that I have to do, but I still have to be able to help, again, as they say, my brother's keeper. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
A lot of times, the way that we can also help our sisters and or our brothers is the way we respond, because someone is looking at you, looking at how you receive things, looking at what you do with it, looking at how you speak. And so in addition to verbal kinds of things, it's the nonverbal that we present to others that can also teach the lesson that you're talking about, Teresa. The Creator built into everything that pause between cause and effect. In other words, something caused something to happen, and then there's an effect. on what's caused. But it's that what you're talking about and what Audrey's talking about when she's referring to what Kathy talked about, that sitting with it is that pause between the two. And it's in the pause that we can make the difference between showing and exhibiting enlightenment or not. So the pause is very important.
I agree, Ms. Barber, and that's what I'm saying. There is a different way on. Yes,
I know
ma'am.
you're saying it. No. I was just trying to say it in another way because there are other people on the line as well, Teresa. So, I mean, you were very clear.
Thank you. I just appreciate everything that I've been getting, but I really appreciate that. But again, I know that, again, we are here for a reason and just trying to figure that out and know what we need to do. But again, for me, it's literally one day at a time being here in South Carolina. Thank you.
And the biggest thing about it, we are here for each other.
And
That's why.
Charles, I love that. That is correct.
I'm glad you said that because we don't have to be wherever you are to be here for you, to be with you or for you, or to be a support system. And if we remember that, I do again, and I know I've said it before. I do believe that this whole thing with COVID has given us a golden opportunity to recognize what the experience is when you are not in a position to see the physical person. You hear the voice, yet you know that you are on the same page, in the same place, in the same space. That, to me, speaks volumes about understanding the nature of the presence being spiritual. Thank you.
Pastor, hey everyone, this is Kathy. I wanted to reiterate what Audrey just said too, because the way Audrey said it made me stop and think, even in that situation where you may not have time to go home and sit with it for overnight or 2 or 3 hours, in that, as Barbara called it, the pause, and as Audrey called it, taking that opportunity to say, you know what, am I going to respond or am I going to react? When I take that time to breathe in that situation, take that breath and decide that, you know what, calm myself down so I can hear me think. That too is still sitting with it. So it just made me rethink everything. I mean, I still believe in sitting with everything, but sitting with can look differently than I have to go home and sit with it overnight. Because in that instance, when you take that breath and that pause to redirect yourself so that you find yourself not reacting, but I'm going to respond. And how am I going to respond? I'm going to respond as the I am that I am in the situation. That too is also sitting with it. So I like that because I think that shines even a little bit more light on what it means to sit with something. So I wanted to share that. I didn't want that to be missed because both Barbara and Audrey said it in 2 different ways, but that pause is also sitting with it. And I just wanted to reiterate that to make certain that we didn't miss it. So thank you.
Thank you. Ron?
I'm here. Any questions, y'all? I wanted to back up to something that I really, really appreciate the more we talk about our physical bodies and the linking yet with the spiritualness of it and our souls. And you're talking about the pineal gland and pituitary gland and the solar plex. And I had never pull all that together to help me bring us as beings to a spiritual awakening. That the body plays that role. So that puts a new, a new level of awareness to it, I guess. And yeah, that may be something to ponder and look at later. I like that.
Well, our body tells a spiritual story. Our body tells us about things. It helps us to see with a greater clarity everything that's in the scriptures. The ones who took the Bible and actually ripped parts of it away and decided that they were not worthy to be included, did not know what they had or what they were doing. And that is why the reason those words, forgive them of whom, for they know not what they do with. In their attempts to destroy the understandings of the elders, or the understandings of the ancestors, the understandings of those holy men, the spiritual men who walk this earth, they don't know what they are doing. Keep in mind that even though it was the idea of those around Jesus to crucify him, it was the Romans who actually nailed him to the cross. So it was Rome who sought to destroy the true message in the scripture by taking parts from it. And now that we are beginning to be shown the physiological nature of our spirituality, we have obligation to forgive those 813 plus their descendants for what they made an attempt to do, and that is to kill the opportunities to understand the nature of spirituality. And now what's happening as we see it through the eye and eyes of physiology and spirituality, we are resurrecting that which was that which was crucified. Does that make sense?
Yes. I saw something too when you were talking about before you got into the physiological part of it. You talked about introspection and how necessary that is. I'm gonna date myself here for a second, but when I was I used to work for a company who worked on mainframe systems, and one of the systems that I thought was very fascinating was a virtual machine, and that was new at the time, new technology. But what it was is you had a mainframe system that had all these all this information on it, and you got all this stuff, all this data stored in different tables and whatnot. So if you can picture each one of us on the phone having our own data there, and this virtual machine, each one of us had one, it gave you access to all that data, everybody else's data as well. And you could manipulate it as you wanted to, but it was yours. And if you didn't store it anywhere, it was virtual. It would go back to where it originated from when you got off of it. So I look at us, we're all a universe. The universe that we talk about, it is in us, it is us. We are all the universe, and the linkage is the vibration and the energy that we talk about that pulls us all together, and it makes us one. So the solar plex and looking at all of that, everything that is in me, is in you, but it is all one because we're all the same. And if we move it in that direction, the rhythm of it operates as one piece of equipment as opposed to however many people are linked into it. So it's just another way to think about it for me to see the picture, I guess, as we unfold this and talk about it. I hope that kind of made sense.
Well, it did. What came to mind when you were talking about that was the example about the water not being non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a label for something that's called hydrogen and oxygen. And then if you boil it, then you'll find out that hydrogen and oxygen doesn't exist either because they separate. I mean, hydrogen and oxygen does not make water because it separates, and it goes back to separate places, hydrogen and oxygen. So what I'm saying is this: if you trace it back, what you find is that the only thing that is in existence is spirituality. Those things which cannot be seen by the eye, but those things which can be experienced when they are put in their proper space. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if we can see ourselves like that, then we can see how we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we are just as the hydrogen and oxygen forms the water. We are also hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen, which means that we are formed into something different than water. Yet it's water. It constitutes water, and the carbon itself constitutes the physiology of it. And yet we see ourselves as being separate, even though we are connected by the gases that makes us makes life what it is in this earth, brings us to life in the earth. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say is this: whether we are in physical form or spiritual form, we are still one. We are still connected as one, because there is no way for every one of us in this earth to be made up of the same atoms and not be connected. You cannot separate the atoms, because if you do, then what they made up doesn't exist anymore. We are one, whether we are physical or whether we are spiritual. There is no way possible for that not to be. The only thing that isn't is our recognition of it. We have not embraced that. And as a result of us not having embraced that, we have created all kind of havoc throughout the world, simply because we don't see ourselves as physically one. We don't see ourselves as spiritually one. Havoc has been created throughout the earth. And the reason it has been created is because of the tones that are revealed when we see the physical entities called our bodies. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what is the issue here? Our journey internal must be to embrace the reality that without regard to anything external of us, we are one, period. I mean, ask yourself the question, why is the solar plex called solar plex all over the world? It doesn't matter who, what language you speak. It doesn't matter what physician is involved, physiologist is involved with it. All of them call it the same thing. And the origin of solar plex comes from Egypt, actually. So why is it that it's the same. It's because of the involvement of the sun and the moon, the universe in our lives, and how it affects it and how we affect it. So when we think about the physiological understandings of our bodies, leads us also to a spiritual understanding of our essence, then we have to ask ourselves, where did it come from? Because the writings of the scriptures that allude to this physiology were written, 20,000 years, no, 100 years, 30,000 years ago or more, 300,000 years ago, I don't know. But it was written long before there was an existence of anything that we have ever known to be in existence. And I was thinking about that. If the ancients wrote these words, because these words go back to Egypt and beyond, if the ancients wrote these words and they were describing what is spiritual and showing us that physiology is equal to spirituality, and they explain each other, if that is the case, then does that not tell us the reason that this African man was able to walk into a hospital and do open heart surgery, and no one knew where he got the blueprint to do it? Did it come from the energy, as Ron was talking about earlier, through reincarnation, or did it come from some the ancient energy that he had been connected with all of his life? How is it that when Cecil Rhodes went to Africa, he had tuberculosis, and he went to Africa to be healed because of the weather. However, when he got there, this African woman took a concoction of herbs, mixed them together, gave them to him, and he called it witch doctor concoction. But guess what? It saved his life. It healed him. And then he went on to lead a band of people to kill 25 million Africans. That's the kind of mentality that we have to bring balance to. The type that will benefit from what you know and then destroy you because you know it. That's what we have to be delivered from. And when I say we, it's because if you know what deliverance needs to take place, and you don't make any attempt to be a deliverer in that regard, then you are just as guilty as the one who brought the imbalance into the earth, the brutality into the earth. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
I'm done, Ron, unless there are questions or comments.
Okay. Anyone? Questions? Okay.
And may I ask before we go, has this been clear tonight? Just Ron.
Yes.
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 Thank you. I can't wait until we get deeper into understanding how these words that have been written on the pages are actually spiritual truth that we walk around with in our bodies every day and don't realize it. And because of the way we are structured and because of the spiritual nature of what these elements of our body represent, these organs, these systems in our body, the way they function, understanding how they function spiritually, will give us opportunity to be lifted up. If I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. That concept, what does that mean? How does it look within the confines of our bodies? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank everyone for their thoughts, questions, and comments tonight. And hope you have a great week. I look forward to doing this again Saturday morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
To explain ways in which